On this short video, I want to read to you some of the posts that I just posted a while ago on X. And I just want to talk about these posts because they are very, very important. So I start with the first one. Someone once said, "There are no whole truths. All truths are half-truths." Okay. And then someone else said, "Half the truth is often a great lie." All right. And then another person said, "A half-truth is the most cowardly of lies." Well, we've all heard people talk about half-truths, right? How bad it is to have a half-truth. Well, let me tell you this. I did the math. And that is why I say with my embodied language that two half-truths are obviously one whole truth. Ha ha ha. That's just a little joke that I have here with myself. I find it funny. And if you don't, well, then too bad for you. Okay, the second one is I say the speaker is the listener. And when I say that, I express a half-truth. Because the whole truth is there is neither a speaker nor a listener inside of us. So to say that the speaker is the listener is just a half-truth. Yeah, and the whole truth is that there is neither a speaker nor a listener inside of us. There's only speaking and listening behavior going on. And at this moment, of course, simultaneously, right? Because it's not that I start listening after I've spoken or that I listen before I speak. No, I listen while I speak. So I have embodied language. And so, in other words, in embodied language, there's no illusion of inner language, because when there is an inner speaker who speaks or an inner listener who listens, then we are talking nonsense. There is no such things. The whole truth is that there's only overt language, and overt language means there is no inner language. There's no illusion of inner language. That's the whole truth. Okay. As a languageologist, I am a languageologist, and a languageologist is a scientific person who speaks about speaking, and who speaks about speaking in such a way that he or she listens to him or herself. That is a languageologist. So as a languageologist, I verbally behave like a natural scientist, like a physicist or a chemist. So I verbally behave like a natural scientist, as I know with my ongoing embodied language that when I refer to I, that is a reference to an imaginary behavior managing inner agent who gained prominence due to the grammatical context created by our long history of conditioning with disembodied language. So as a natural scientist, I am a languageologist. When I speak about I know, I speak about I know with my ongoing embodied language. I'm very well aware that when I say that I is always a reference to an imaginary behavior managing inner agent who gained prominence in the culture due to the grammatical context which was created by a long history of conditioning with disembodied language. In my embodied language, there is no such inner imaginary behavior causing agent. There is no inner behavior managing agent. It doesn't exist. There is no inner language. Okay, that's another one. Okay, here we go. Due to our unaddressed history of conditioning with disembodied language, you have no other choice than by default to only rely on a non-existing, mystical, private self agent to explain your behavior. That is one of the tragedies of the human conditioning, the human conditioning, it should be called the human conditioning rather than the human condition, because we have all been conditioned with disembodied language. But this unaddressed history of conditioning with disembodied language, in which we do not listen to ourselves while we speak, it by default implies that we have no other option than to rely on this fantasy of an inner selves, a non-existing mystical private self agent, to explain our own behavior. This is wrong. We are explaining our behavior incorrectly. We are actually not explaining our behavior at all with our disembodied language. We're just trying to get away with the fact that we can't help behave in a particular way. But when we have embodied language, we begin to adhere to the natural science of behaviorology. So, if we consider what is happening with our disembodied language describes our individually lived experience incorrectly, and this inevitably results in chaos and conflict. That is what is happening in most people, their lives. In embodied language, in which we listen to ourselves while we speak, our individually lived experience is expressed correctly, is articulated, described correctly, which means there is no covert language. There is no inner agent doing what we're doing. Our behavior is caused by stimuli in the environment, and it is due to antecedent stimuli that our behavior occurs, and if that behavior then results in positive outcomes, then that behavior is more likely to occur in the future. So that's how this works with embodied language. So again, these are two very small equations that I put there. Our disembodied language divided by our individually lived experience, that's creating chaos, and conflict, because it doesn't match. Our disembodied language cannot describe our individually lived experience because we're not listening to ourselves. So it's very important to get it right, to have embodied language, to listen to yourself, and then your individually lived experience is effortlessly, naturally, beautifully expressed, and you experience oneness, which I call language enlightenment. All right. And so this is just based on the equation. If you put 1 over 1, that equals 1, or 10 over 10, that is also 1, and A over A also equals 1. So in this case, embodied language divided by individually lived experience equals oneness. That's just a simple equation to point it out. Okay, although I say or write very often that I have ongoing embodied language, this is again a half-truth. I don't have embodied language or ongoing embodied language. And that is the whole truth. And what do I mean by that? I simply mean that there is no inner me. There is no inner I who does what I do. And this is not some silly word game, but it is the very core of languageology, which of course elucidates behaviorology as a subset. So without languageology, behaviorology cannot be properly addressed in the sense that we can actually begin to talk about it, because that's what we should be doing. We should be talking about these antecedents which set the stage for our response, for our behavior, and then the postcedent which reinforces that behavior, making it more likely for it to occur in the future. Or, if it is not resulting in good outcome, then we feel punished, or there is punishment as a consequence of our behavior, and that leads to the decrease of the behavior. So if we notice in our description that the outcome of our behavior is not good, we're going to stop that behavior. That would be the rational thing to do, right? But only if we have language to actually talk about that. This is why there are so many problems with behavior, which is ineffective basically, which is just undesirable behavior, problematic behavior, which should be completely stopped. But we cannot stop it. We do not know how to stop it because we don't have the language, the embodied language to stop it. But embodied language is, of course, the language with which we can stop it successfully. Yeah, I've done that myself, and I feel very proud and happy to be able to tell you about it. And if you do what I say, if you begin to explore for yourself the difference between your embodied language and your disembodied language, when you actually begin to listen to yourself, and when you don't, when you are in the grip again of your history of conditioning with disembodied language, if you begin to practice that and to sort of just say for yourself, this difference is really true, it happens all the time, that I am not listening to myself because that conditioning history with disembodied language is very strong. So you are setting time aside to actually talk with yourself, to listen to yourself. And then lo and behold, you hear your own embodied language. You can record it just like I record this little video. And you can hear it back. You can look at yourself and you say, oh wow, this is my embodied language. It's so cool. Now, you continue to do this, and then on the 4th of July or after the 4th of July in 2026, that is Independence Day. That is the day in which America actually, that's the real No Kings Day. Yeah, that's when we stepped away from King George, when America became independent. And so we celebrate that Independence Day, also the 250th birthday of the United States, which is the country of individual freedom. Yeah, and so I align myself, very deliberate, with that celebration to go into the golden era of the United States, the golden era of the freedom of the individual, which hopefully will completely go across the world. Yeah, and we will all be having embodied language, and there will be an enormous cultural shift. The cultural shift in which people begin to finally acknowledge that there is an enormous difference between disembodied language, the common way of talking in which we do not listen to ourselves while we speak, and embodied language in which we listen to ourselves while we speak. And when we have that way of talking, we are going to create a very, very different world. Okay, I'm already living that way, and if you watch my other videos, you hear more about that. Okay, I have a couple more, I believe. Oh yeah, here's one more. So I repeat again, although I say or write very often that I have ongoing embodied language, there is no I inside of me. So so it is a half-truth. Yeah, I do not have embodied language. This is the whole truth. The whole truth is that there is no inner me who does what I do at this moment. Yeah, there's only my language and you are listening to it. But you, as the person who does the listening, is also not there. There's only me speaking and you listening without you. There's only the behavior that actually determines who we are. So we are, whether we acknowledge this or not, we are all a repertoire of behaviors. That's what we really are. And we are not some inner stuff that does not exist. There's no language inside of us, okay? So this is not some silly word game. No, it is the very core of languageology. Yeah, the language that will liberate us and make us free individuals and capable of talking correctly about our individually lived experience. And languageology has its connection with behaviorology, because behaviorology is a subset of languageology. Even though the behaviorology you could say, had its own development in academia and in publications. Yeah, but I have read that various works of behaviorology. I've studied those, and I write about that here in these posts. So, the fact that we are used to saying with our disembodied language, I think, or you say, yeah. So we assume there is a you inside of you who says that, and I who say I think. I assume not only that there's inner language, but I also assume that there is an inner me who does my inner language. This is just all totally wacko. Yeah, there is no such thing. Yeah. And when you say me too, yeah, me too, yeah, that's the Me Too movement. Yeah, I hope you're going to say me too in terms of having embodied language. But anyway, there is no me inside of you because it's just only whether you do it or not. And it is not you who does it. There is only your embodied language, which at a certain moment is going because there is listening while speaking happening. Okay. So the fact that we are used to saying with our disembodied language, I think, you say, me too, it makes it impossible to talk about our behavior, our individually lived experience correctly. We need to have ongoing embodied language to abandon the illusion of inner language, which in disembodied language replaces our individually lived experience. Yeah, so this is another very important point to be understood. Your individually lived experience, what you're going through, yeah, is replaced by your fantasy about inner language. And as long as you let that happen, because you believe in having thoughts, you believed in having a mind, you are not having your individually lived experience. You cannot, because you wrongly describe it and you disconnect from it because of your wrong description. Okay, two more. When I express with my ongoing embodied language my individually lived experience, I am not voicing an inner I agent who seemingly takes credit for the actions of its host body, because there is no me inside of me who is choosing, determining, contemplating, or concluding. Yeah. So again, when I express with my ongoing embodied language my individually lived experience, I am not voicing an inner I agent who seemingly takes credit for the actions of its host body, because there is no me inside of me who is choosing, determining, contemplating, or concluding. And this is such a liberating expression to realize that you are able to choose what we call, you believe that you choose, but you are able to choose because there is a stimulus that makes you choose. Yeah, let's say you suddenly see your key laying there and you pick it up because you don't want to forget your key or something like that. Yeah. And maybe you have your wallet also laying at a certain spot because you want to make sure you take your wallet with you. Okay, so do you get what I'm saying? And in that sense also, we are also each other's memory, in the sense that we talk with each other and we remind each other of everything that we might otherwise forget. And so our language is extremely important to ground us into the reality. Without our language, we are not in the reality. And that means all kinds of problems. Anyways, so there is no inner me who decides, there is no inner me who concludes or who contemplates or all these things. All of that is ineffective and problematic language that has continued until this very day, because disembodied language was never addressed. It could only be addressed with embodied language, like I do. So, due to disembodied language, we continue to ignore antecedent control of our behavior, and we imagine an indwelling self agent to cause our behavior. And it is not with sporadic embodied language. No, we cannot have once in a while a little bit of embodied language and then expect to get good results with that. We need to have ongoing embodied language, because it is only with ongoing embodied language that we can describe our behavior as an entirely natural kind of event bearing a strict functional relation to preceding events. Isn't that beautifully said? Yes, something happens before you behave, and that is called an antecedent. And so it is only with our embodied language that we are no longer referring to all this internal imaginary stuff. No, it is only with ongoing embodied language that we are going to express where we are. Yeah, where are we now? That is the environment in which I am obtaining the stimuli which make this response possible. Yeah, so and then I also experience the outcome. I experience immediately, yeah, the self-reinforcing effects of my embodied language. Yeah, and there are long-term consequences of my embodied language as well, and of everybody's embodied language. Okay, I look forward to hearing from you, or to, you can send me a little message maybe underneath my videos, or tell me that you are beginning to decipher for yourself on your own the difference between your disembodied language and your embodied language. And I will send you a message back. Yeah, not a long one, but just a short one to encourage you to do it. And then, after you have had your own experience of the difference between disembodied language and embodied language, then in 2026, on 4th of July or afterwards, we are going to celebrate our language enlightenment with our embodied language, with our ongoing embodied language. Okay.